Most articles about AI and SEO are written for SEO people like me. But this video is one for you. This video is for founders. So here's what's actually changing in 2023. So I'm going to give you 5 changes in B2B search that you need to know. I'm going to tell you 3 fixes that you can put live this week on your website. I'm going to tell you about one overhyped thing that you can probably just ignore. And by the end of this video, you'll know everything you need to know about AI visibility for you and your business. So what does AI visibility actually mean? AI visibility is about ensuring that your business gets cited, gets recommended by AI overviews in Google, and also what we call the LLMs. So the LLMs, large language models, are things like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and Gemini. So what we're seeing more and more of is people are starting their research, their search journey in these tools. And you'll probably know that yourself from your own behavior, and I expect you're using them on a regular basis. The other thing that we're seeing AI kind of interrupt traditional search is within Google itself. So you may well have noticed this when you're searching in Google, you'll see the AI overviews appear at the top of the search result. Now, all of this stuff works slightly different to what we would now call traditional search. So what used to happen, you'd go to Google, you'd type a search query in, and you would get a list of links come up. And those links were going through to individual pages on a website. Now, Google would make a decision, taking into account lots and lots and lots of different things, to decide which individual pages should rank for that search query that you've typed in. Now, AI works differently. AI does not rank pages. What AI does is it takes information from multiple sources, and it tries to present you with an answer based on the information that it finds across the internet. The majority of that information is still coming from your website though. You may well have heard people talking about the fact that you don't need a website anymore. I ask this question to you. Where do you think these AI tools get the majority of their information from in the first place? Your website. So here are the changes that we're seeing happening in the world of search. How do you have to think about this? What do you need to do to make sure that your business is going to be cited, going to be recommended in these different AI tools? So the first thing to think about is, again, your own behavior. Queries are getting much longer and they're getting much more conversational. So the way that you type something into ChatGPT, for example, is probably a little bit different to the way that you might type it into Google. You're likely going to put in more than a few words. You're likely going to speak to it in a way that kind of feels a bit more like you're chatting to a friend rather than speaking to, an AI bot out there somewhere. So what we have to think about when that comes to our own website is making sure that if people are asking these longer-tailed phrases, question-based searches, then we need to make sure that we're addressing that in the content that we're providing on our website. So if you know, for example, the types of questions your customers are asking you, you can also use things like also asked and answer the public to see what kind of longer questions people are typing into Google. This will give you a really good understanding of the types of content that you should be producing. This is predominantly going to be blog content and it's going to be question based. And my advice would be that take that question, answer it really simply and succinctly at the top of the page, and then go into your answer in a lot more detail underneath. And that's going to help AI to not only know that you're answering that question specifically, but also to be able to present a really short answer to somebody and then cite you so that if they want more information, they can click through to your website and not somebody else's. So building on that, we look to our second kind of change, and that's that structured content is more important. That actually the way that you're structuring your content is becoming more important. So having those SEO fundamentals in place, things like H tags. So you have a H1 main heading on your page. You have H2 tags, which help to separate different sections of your content by having, subheadings. A little bit like you would if you were writing an essay, really. Things like making sure that you're putting those definitions in early on in the content, that you're linking things together, that you're introducing things like case studies, testimonials, tables, visuals within your content. All of these things can help you get cited instead of your competitors within the LLMs and the AI overviews. The third thing we're seeing as a big change, and this has really been a big change in my industry, is that brand authority is now becoming much more important. So if we wanted to get found for something, we would write a page about that particular keyword or key phrase and hope that that page ranked really well. Now, what we have to do is ensure that we're addressing this trust element. So AI needs to know that you're a bona fide business and that you're trusted outside outside of your own website. So if I stand here, for example, or sit here even, and tell you that I'm an expert at something, you don't know me, this might be the first time we've had a conversation. You're probably going to be a bit skeptical. But if people elsewhere are talking about me and saying I'm an expert, then you're going to trust in that a little bit more. A bit like referrals, if you ask your friend who they use for their local plumber that's really good and they give you a recommendation, you're going to trust that person much more than if that plumber themselves knocks on your door and says, I'm a great plumber, you should use my services. So how do you do this? Well, you have to make sure that you are being cited across multiple places across the internet. So there's lots of ways you can do that. Social media is one. You can make sure that you're visible in all the main directories. So the big directories in your country, your industry directories, and also local directories can really help too. You might become a guest on a podcast. You might speak at an event. All of these things are going to help produce what we call third-party signals, which help these AI tools and Google understand that you're an authority in the things that you're talking about. Change 4. Well, this one isn't quite so much of a change, but it's just a reminder that the technical fundamentals are still really important. So things like your site loading really quickly, the fact that your website needs to work really well on a mobile device, that you need to have things like alt text, which is kind of words behind images to explain what those images are for accessibility reasons. All these things are still important. So what I would say, and one of the ways to think about this, is all of the SEO fundamentals that you may have heard about before are still really important. They create like the foundational layer of everything. And then the additional work, the AI visibility, the third-party signals, trust, building out your content clusters so that you're building it around topic, this kind of sits on top of that fundamental work that you should already have in play. Now, the 5th change is what we're seeing working really well, especially for small businesses, is if you can really pick 2 or 3 specific niche topics within the services or products that you offer and really focus on those. We're seeing that working really well. And actually, what can happen nicely there is that you can win against the much bigger companies because they have a massive umbrella compared to you. They have to talk about lots of different topics, lots of different services and products. Whereas if you can really niche down on something and be seen as an expert, then you can beat them when it comes to AI visibility. And we've seen it already with some of our clients and it's working really, really well. So there were the big 5 changes. So what are the things that you can do this week? What are the fixes that you can implement within the next 7 days on your own website to help you increase your chances of being cited and recommended by these different AI tools and platforms? So the first one is to rewrite your homepage. Now, one of the things that people often get wrong when it comes to their website is on their homepage, they talk all about how amazing they are. They use lots of industry jargon and make it really difficult for an end user to come along and really understand what they do. So I want you to have a look at your website, have a look at your homepage specifically with fresh eyes. Can you tell instantly, what do you do, who you do it for, and what makes you different from other people? And you need to be able to demonstrate that in a way that's very user-centric. Clear H1 tag, main title within the banner of your website. What do you do? Underneath that, who are you doing it for? What's the transformation that people can expect? And then you back it up with trust signals. How long have you been in business? Are you affiliated with any particular industry, qualifications or organizations? Can you put some testimonials on your homepage? Can you link out to some review sites? So if you've got Trustpilot, for example, bring in some Google reviews. All those kinds of things can really help. The second thing is to add FAQs into your pages. Now, this is going to go away soon, I suspect, but for the moment it still works. So having FAQs at the bottom of your service pages explaining, those questions that you're most asked about, what the answers to those questions are, can help also. As I mentioned, it will go away, but for now I would do it. As a small business, it can help you, again, get those easy wins when it comes to being visible within LLMs and in the AI overviews. And then the third fix is have a look at how you can get cited in an external source. So is there an industry publication that you can approach? Have you got a story? Have you got an article in mind that you could write for them? Have you looked at maybe some industry directories that you're not a member of? Maybe try and get your business listed in one of those. Pitch to speak on a podcast. Pitch to speak at an event, all these kinds of things. I would have a list of the different types of citations that you can get. And each week I would go through and I would pitch for at least one of those each week. And if you continue to do that, then you will build up these third-party signals quite quickly. And that's really going to help you moving forwards. So what's one thing to ignore? Well, you may well hear you don't need a website. You just need to optimize for AI. Actually, AI agents are going to be doing all the searches for us in the future. So it doesn't really matter about your website and the content that you have on it, and SEO is going to die. Well, if I had a penny for every time I'd heard that SEO was dead over the last nearly 20 years in business, I would probably be a very, very rich lady right now. SEO is not going anywhere. It's just changing in the same way we've seen search change over the years. So if you think about it, if you're looking for a film to watch, you don't go to Google to search anymore. You'll go directly to maybe Netflix or even IMDb and look for films there. If you are looking for a new book, you probably don't go to Google anymore. You might go straight to something like Amazon and look there. It's still searching. It's just a different type of search. So I think what's going to happen is we're not going to think of SEO, AEO, GEO. We're just going to think of it about search. We're just going to think of it all as search. And for you, let's simplify this. What you're trying to do ultimately is get your business in front of your potential customers in the places where they are searching and for the things that they're searching for. That's all it is that we're trying to do. So if you enjoyed this video, then please hit subscribe. We're a new channel and we're trying to get some followers, so I'd really appreciate that. The next one is going to be about metrics and what metrics you should be measuring now, especially since things like traffic aren't really that useful anymore. So follow along, subscribe, post some comments below. Really appreciate it, and I will see you on the next one.